Anna, I know you have issues because you adopted. And Michelle, I know you have issues because your dad's a piece of shit. And Becky, I know you're sad because you're single for the majority of this book. But you guys are my best friends. And we're like sisters, and I'm so glad we have each other. Why do you need 700 scenes like that? Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby, this is Shelby Reads. If you're new here, I'm a femme for butch lesbian and a dedicated goth. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more about sapphic books, which is what we talk about all year round. Okay, to my usual viewers slash subscribers, hey besties. So I know normally I go chapter by chapter through these books and have an insane level of like detail about what goes on. I'm not going to do that for this book, and that's in your best interest, I promise you. So today we're doing Their Search for Ms.Right by Janet Lee Smith. It is a contemporary sapphic romance that, well, that's what it calls itself. Do I agree? No. Like usual? No. It takes place in Massachusetts and it follows three best friends who are all lesbians. Anna, Becky, and Michelle. Yes, very white people names. Hooray. Also, as someone who went to college in Massachusetts, I feel like I'm qualified to speak on all of this. So the reason why we're not going chapter by chapter, I will give like my disclaimers and warnings in a second, I promise, is because this book is ungodly boring. It is one of the worst books I've ever read, and is there anything like egregious about it, like offensive? Not that I can remember, no, but it was such a torture to get through, and it's only 175 pages. So I'm gonna give you disclaimers and some trigger warnings, okay? Disclaimer number one, this review is not for the author or stands of this author's work. You will not like what I have to say. Number two, there will be spoilers, even though we're not going chapter by chapter. So if you actually want to read it, go read it and then come back, okay? I'll still be here. Number three, I'm not bashing sapphic books. I think we deserve to have mediocre, terrible sapphic books and amazing ones, but everyone else is allowed to get on the internet and talk about how they feel about it. So I'm allowed to do the exact same thing, okay? So I'm going to go with the trigger warnings that I remember specifically, and I'll pop back in if necessary. But I remember alcohol use, toxic relationship. This isn't really like a trigger warning from Storygraph that you can just have, so I'm just gonna give it to you. There's a lot of talk about the foster care system and the adoption system of the United States, and it is very much demonizing somebody's addict parents and making it seem like adoption slash foster care are like the pinnacle of how we can work on these things. And as someone who works in that sector right now, it rubbed me the wrong way for a lot of reasons, and we'll talk about it, but like, yeah. So there are also some references to child abuse slash neglect, as well as drug use around children, basically. So if none of that's for you and you got a scoop boot, I get it. Without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to try to insert the picture that is at the beginning of every chapter on the ebook, because it's three very similar looking white women, and I do personally believe that is very reflective of the book. This book struggles in a lot of areas, but particularly in distinguishing which voice is which. It doesn't do a good job of that. And when a book is first person POV, I really believe that, and it's switching POVs too, that we should be able to distinguish everybody's voice from one another, but like I cannot in this one, because they're all the same copy paste character, just tweak it slightly, give them different careers. That, like, So we start chapter one with like 45 years after they've met each other, and it's just a lazy way to get across how they met each other and now how much they mean to one another. But considering this is the first chapter of this book, I don't care, and it feels like a lazy way to just lore dump about their characters a lot. So to me, in my brain, the difference between Anna, Michelle, and Becky is pretty much non-existent. Becky is the one that they make fun of for being late all the time. Anna is the social worker, and Michelle, what is there to say about Michelle? Not a whole lot. I think there's something with her dad. None of it really is of consequence, honestly. Oh, and I'm sorry, they make fun of Becky for being late, but she's also diagnosed with ADHD. As somebody who has ADHD, go f right off with that, okay? Like, you've been friends with these people for 45 years and they still make fun of you for a trait that is very indicative of ADHD. That. So we're flashing back in chapter 2 to 31 years earlier, at their high school graduation. I'm sorry, at their college graduation. Close enough. They are all upset because they are all moving out of where they have lived for college with each other to be on their own. Why are they doing this immediately after college, even though they all love living together and they would save a ton of money, and Massachusetts is fucking expensive? I don't know why they're doing it. It really doesn't make any sense. None of them ever express a desire for personal space. And when they start searching for Ms.Right, that doesn't even require personal space for quite some time. Like, it doesn't happen for quite a while in this book, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But they're all just like devastated that they're not gonna live together, and they're like, I'm not gonna be used to not seeing you. And they decide that they want to do a weekly dinner so that they can all see each other. Again, why they're not just living together? I don't know. Doesn't make sense. But it's gonna be on Wednesdays. Hooray. And they start it before they graduate even. And they go over the very basic life things you need to do, which is like finals, packing, finding a job, an apartment. I'm like, okay, well, why are you packing? Because I didn't get the indication that they live in the dorms. So why are you packing up all your stuff when you don't have a job and you don't have an apartment? You're not gonna get approved for the apartment without a job. So what are you doing? Also, splitting the rent 3 ways is way cheaper, and you actually like living together. So I don't understand why. And I'm going to read you this little paragraph from towards the end of the dinner because I feel like it really encapsulates what this book is all about. Being with my friends with nothing to do but talk, eat, and have a drink or two had really relaxed me. This made me feel our weekly dinners would help us get through tough times. It wouldn't be the same as living together during our college years, but it would be a time dedicated just to us. I feel like it doesn't necessarily encapsulate everything I'm trying to explain, but I do feel like it kind of shows the over-explaining, very plain language of like everything that they do. If I find a better one, because I do have highlights, I'll let you know, but like there's mostly just telling, not showing, for 175 pages. So they're all moving out of their apartment right after the graduation. Again, this is so incredibly unrealistic, but primarily because Massachusetts is a prohibitively expensive state to live in. It is. And they have this like group confession-y thing, and it's like, can't imagine being without you. You're both sisters to me. Blah, 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 blah. One of the most unrealistic things about this is, number one, none of them have tried to bang each other. I'm just saying, like, not that realistic in Lesbianville, okay? And also, again, I would prefer that you show me why they're so important to you. We are only 8 pages in. Could you maybe think of literally any way to show that they care about each other instead of just continuing to tell me? We set up Wednesday night dinner so we can still see each other, we're all sad about moving out, was enough to let me know that they all really love each other and they're really close. But you decided to tell it to me also. I didn't need all that, thanks. Oh my god, I just remembered what Michelle's difference is. She has daddy issues. Sorry, I forgot about the daddy issues because this book is boring as all get out, okay? He just kind of left her and her mom, and he got remarried about 6 or 7 years ago, and he now has a 5-year-old daughter, and she feels still like deeply rejected and unhappy about this. I can see it, I guess, but at the same time it felt like it came up oddly because most of their dinners is just a circle jerk of like, I can't believe that I know you guys, I can't believe that we're friends, it's wonderful, you guys are always there for me, you're like my sisters, you were there for me through my ADHD, you were there for me through my dad being terrible. Like, I'm like, I don't need it repeated. I don't, okay? And I think that's one of the other problems about this book is that the author is trying to make these people too good of people. And that's just not the way life works. Like, even good, kind people have foibles. They have things that are different about them that some people might find irritating. I can't stand this. But they're all toast into their future lives as adults. Like, you haven't been adults for the entire 4 years of college. Okay, I know what they mean, but it's so annoying. And then Becky's like, our crying ruined our makeup. Michelle, you have mascara running down your cheeks. And then it's just some attempt at banter, okay? And I'm just like, yes, but getting together every week and crying over each other and how grateful you are that you have each other and how amazing you are is a little weird. You'd think you'd get desensitized after all the years you've been friends together, but apparently no. So chapter 3, we learn that Anna already has a job. She's going to be working at DCF, which is, I'm assuming, the equivalent for New Hampshire, which is DCYF. Same thing. It's Child Protective Services. yada yada. She's nervous but exhilarated. This is unfortunately not realistic because once you get in there, you're gonna realize how bad the system is. Except she doesn't, because why would she? And Anna's pretty lonely without her two besties, and she's considering getting a pet. But that's much better than what she decides to get later, so it's totally fine with me. She's at home, she ordered herself some takeout, and she's going to rewatch The Handmaid's Tale, which is like an insane thing to rewatch on a random day in your brand new apartment, but okay. A nice relaxing night at home. What more could I ask for other than perhaps a furry friend, so I don't have to talk to myself so much.
No roommate to bother me. How could it get any better than this?
And she's drinking some, and she's once again whinging about how much she misses them. I'm gonna start skipping some of it. Now we get a Becky POV partway through this Anna chapter, and we immediately start again with her talking about how she's exhausted and how much she misses her friends. Are you seeing what I'm saying about how none of their narrative voices are different in the slightest? Yeah, so I'm going to stop going chapter by chapter. I'm going to sum up the rest. I just wanted to remember the beginning, have the setup for you guys of who's who. So I'm just going to tell you the plot, and then we're going to talk about why I fucking hated this book. So Anna becomes a social worker, as we've said, and through her job at DCF, she ends up adopting a middle schooler who's like a girl. And she came from a situation where her parents were addicts and they're on drugs and they're allegedly terrible people. Now, as somebody who works again in the foster system adjacent, at very least, like we provide services mostly to children who are in DCYF custody. That's just the majority. That's just a fact. Okay. I'm not sure what the laws are in Massachusetts, and I'm too tired and I don't want to look it up, but we at my company have flip-flopped back and forth a lot over whether you can adopt the kids that you've, met and worked with. And right now it's a no. And I understand, because I do feel like it raises a serious ethical dilemma, because especially if you are the social worker, the goal is supposed to be, at least at first, parental reunification. And I do not feel that she or her coworker ever at any point even considered that. And I understand that sometimes people who are addicts have been involved with DCYF a lot of times, and that's why. But it didn't feel like that was why, It felt like they were like, oh, we got her from this horrible situation. She's all mine now. I can't remember the girl's name. Doesn't matter. I don't really think so. So, dear God. The main story arc with that is her having this kid, the kid being thrilled to be with her. Then her bio family is like contacting her and other stuff, and she's really unhappy about it. She starts acting out because she's a preteen and she's upset about it. I will say, as someone who works with this age group, specifically middle schoolers to teenagers, right? Actually to young adults, because we keep some people till they're 21. Okay. I don't think that this is all that realistic, and it was really frustrating to me simply because it's a lot more complicated than that. A lot of children who are older, who have been abused by their parents and then removed from the situation, have very complicated feelings about that parent or parents. Example, like I always talk about how my dad was an alcoholic, and I feel like I always kind of sound maybe harsh potentially, but it's because I've had the longest time to process that no contact, because I stopped talking to him at 15. So most of my feelings when it was happening were, I was angry, obviously, but I was also very sad. And as I got older, I kind of also missed that part of him for the first 11 years of my life when he wasn't an alcoholic, and he wasn't very smart, but he was emotionally available in a way that my mom wasn't. I do miss that side of him, but I also know that he's not that person anymore, and he never decided to get clean despite me making it absolutely clear that that was the only way that I was going to interact with him. And it's a complicated emotion. Like, you can still be glad to not be with them, but like, it never feels like this little girl is allowed to question whether this better living situation feels okay to her, because she's not allowed to have complex feelings, because these characters are all supposed to be perfect people. Okay, Michelle. Okay, so Michelle's story centers around primarily her dad, and he, I think, has cancer, some kind of terminal illness, and he decided to reach out to her because he wants to reconnect with her and I think one of her siblings, her sister or something like that. So she flies out with her girlfriend that she ends up getting. We're gonna get to the girlfriends in a hot sec because oh my god. There is also like, I don't think the girlfriend flies out at first, and then I do think she comes and meets, I think, but like she was like, I don't want to be in your way, I don't want to be a problem for you, yada yada, you gotta go, you gotta go. And I think that it kind of has really strong boomer propaganda, in my opinion, because forgiving your parents for abandoning you as a child is not something everyone needs to do. And you don't have to forgive anyone for anything. I know that a lot of people, particularly religious people, try to con others into thinking that they must forgive people. But my therapist has agreed with me pretty much since day one, you don't have to forgive in order to move on with your life. I didn't forgive my dad. I have moved on with my life. I don't think about him as much anymore. Like, I just am like, okay, whatever. But I feel like there is such intense boomer, respect your parents, parents make mistakes, why don't you give your parents another chance type BS that is like deeply unfair to everyone who can't reconcile or just doesn't want to. There are some hurts that are too far to forgive. And I feel like I think it's really interesting because I feel like it sets the little girl up in a very odd way. Michelle can forgive her father even though he has no illness reason as to why he didn't want to be in her life. But the little girl is totally justified simply because her parents are suffering from addiction. It's very odd. I think abandoning someone when you're in a clear state of mind is abusive and insane, and also worse because you are in your right state of mind. He made many choices to not speak to his children. It's infuriating. And last but not least, we have Becky. Now, I will say I think Becky's story primarily revolves around the finding Ms.Right, but we're gonna get to that right now because I pretty much summed up all the plot points except for the girlfriends for you. So let's go. So after a while of being adults and, you know, just getting their bearings, getting into a good spot in their career, I will say it's also weird that all three of them decided to do that and not one of them decided to like have a fling or to try to date earlier or anything. It's really odd to me because it feels like each character was copy pasted. They decide to go to this new, I think it's a queer bar that also does coffee, something like that. And they're like, we are going to try and find Ms.Right. We are going to try and find the one for us, but not in a polycule way. I don't really enjoy that anyway, but if you did, you might have wanted it here, you know? I also think it would have been more interesting. So I just really want to harp on the point that the title of the fucking book is Their Search for Ms.Right. How many of them had to search? Not a single one, really. So they get to the bar, and unfortunately for us, insta love strikes again for two of them. Anna ends up dating one of the women she meets immediately. Michelle meets the singer who's there. She starts to date her immediately. It takes only Becky like a bit more time, and then the plot becomes, oh my god, the two of us are so happy. We want Becky to find that happiness. Another thing that irritates me about insta love in this specific instance of this specific story is that number one, we didn't have to do it, and number two, Anna adopts a little girl. We've talked about that. She doesn't introduce them for a while, which is fair, but just instantly being in love with someone and not thinking super critically about that overall before introducing them to said child is weird to me. It's weird and unsafe behavior. You don't know who's around. And I was worried the entire time. Now, I didn't think the book was going to go that way. It's not horror and it doesn't really have any trigger warnings to speak of, but still, I was deeply concerned. Deeply concerned. The plot turns into, again, we're so sorry, Becky, we want you to find love, blah, 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 blah. Well, she's the only one who has to search, apparently, except we never see her go on dates with people because she ends up finding somebody for her too. But this is the only relationship that doesn't last. This is the only one that is toxic as it was insta love to begin with. Anyway, right? And then she finally decides she wants to dump her because she's like, it's pretty toxic. And they have the same circle jerk of, yeah, I think my relationship's toxic, and like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, we're all here for you, kumbaya. Like, what are we talking about? Okay? You don't have to say this to each other every time. You won't just simply forget. Okay? You won't. So shush. But she decides she wants to leave, not because of how her girlfriend treats her, but because she meets some hot girl who's gonna be her new insta love from Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts. There's nothing wrong with working there. I mean, they don't pay well, but like, there's nothing wrong with working there, but like, can we talk about how none of it has anything to do with their self-actualization as people? It has nothing to do with deep, meaningful connection because there was no search for Ms.Right. Anna and Michelle didn't search anywhere. Becky ran into both potential girlfriends at 2 places she would just be going to anyway. There was no search. There wasn't. Like, and Becky was the one who was closest to a search, I guess, but it's not enough. Like, you can't name your book something and then not have it in the book at all, unless, like, it's a very complicated and interesting take on why. Like, oh my god, infuriating. Okay, I pretty much described the entire plot to you. Right, Anna's happy, perfect, adopting a child, even though it's way more complicated than that, and this girl has no behavior problems, not really. Her and her girlfriend working out and wanting to move in together pretty quickly, in my opinion. And the little girl is super excited for this and is all down with it. Okay, then. We have Michelle with her daddy issues and him just conveniently dying the second he wants to be in her life again. Riveting. Fantastic stuff. And her girlfriend, the singer, and I feel like a lot of their story was simply about, like, do you want this, do you not want this, I don't know. Like, not about the relationship, but about, like, do you want me to go with you to California to see your dad, or do you want me to stay here? Like, what do you want?
What do you want?
And then we have Becky, who is the only one who kind of vaguely searched, except she went to a bar and didn't find anyone, but she went like once, so whatever. And then her going, I can't remember where she met the first girlfriend, but it doesn't matter. And immediate insta attraction there too, slash insta love, and then insta love slash insta attraction with the Dunkin' Donuts girl. There was no search. She wasn't doing a meaningful search. She wasn't on the dating apps. And yes, this book is recent enough for there to be dating apps, okay? There was no search. There was nothing interesting about this book. And I'm going to tell you now my main critiques other than what I've already said. Number one, I feel that the dialogue, the giant paragraphs telling you but not showing you sound like you took a French exercise you were forced to do in like French 2. So it's mostly like, I went here, then I did this, then this, you know, like past tense, whatever. You put it into Google Translate into English and then whipped it back over to French and then English again, and now it's incomprehensible and it's very choppy and very much like, I did this, then I did that, then I did this, then I thought this, then I said that, then I did this, then I did this. Like, I don't need characters to tell me everything they did down to like the last second of every day. I don't need to know what they ate all the time. I don't need to know what they're on about all of the time. And I fear that authors think that we do need to know every single thing they did and every single reasoning and every single thought. And I just don't want that. And before you're like, Shelby, you don't like contemporary romance. Yes, I do. I found that the issue with this book and the issue with a lot of books lately is specifically romantasy, I gotta say, is that they just want to tell you everything. They just want to tell you what happened. They just want to lore dump. And like, it can be done well. An example, I just finished Blood on Her Tongue by Joanna Van Veen, which is, of course, horror, not contemporary. However, I was really worried in the beginning because there was a gigantic fucking lore drop and I was like, oh no, that's one of my least favorite things. And then it turned it around and it was great. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was very scandalous. I think I might do a video on that one because I think it was like fun. All right, fun and creepy. Was it a little predictable? Yes, but I had fun every minute. You can lore dump a little and then stop doing that and I'll be fine with it. You know, like, just please tell me what they're doing, but not in a way where you just tell me. Like, show me how they feel, show me what they're doing, show me their trajectory, show me things, instead of simply having the character tell me over and over and over and over and over in their head. Don't you guys get bored of writing it that way? Don't you get bored of editing it when it's all just that? Like, I don't understand it. And I also feel that a lot of these books are so repetitive, deeply repetitive, because they don't know how to write things in a convincing way. So one of the scenes that I felt was done to death in this book was the dinner scenes, where it's all the time. It's all the time. Almost anytime they're reconvening, it's because they're at that dinner. I was so frustrated because it felt like every time it was, Anna, I know you have issues because you adopted, and Michelle, I know you have issues because your dad's a piece of shit, and Becky, I know you're sad because you're single for the majority of this book, but you guys are my best friends, and we're like sisters, and I'm so glad we have each other. Why do you need 700 scenes like that? It's frustrating, it's boring, it's weird, and I think it's odd that they just get together, do a little bit of teasing, which some of it feels ableist because of the ADHD, but whatever. We'll ignore it for now, okay? We'll ignore it for now. You never talk about anything interesting with one another. You never talk about books you've read. And again, you get together once a week, so like you have nothing to say except, I love you guys. You're like my sisters. I couldn't have made it this far without you. Ah, like that's all you have to say to each other every single time. How are you actually friends? You don't have anything to say. And I find that so odd. Even when I'm struggling to text my friends, I try to say something different that's not the same as the same thing I say every time, because I'm like, I hate when people are repetitive. And I feel like that's the crux of this book, right? This book's biggest crime is being boring, which isn't really a crime. It's just an observation. And that's fine. But it's a little infuriating for someone who doesn't like to be bored when I'm reading. If I wanted to do that, I would read extra boring nonfiction. I love nonfiction. I'm not knocking it, but some of it you can't deny is dry and boring, okay? Or I would read The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne again because it's so boring. God. Also, it very much felt like everyone's conversations with their girlfriends, which by the way, except for the toxic girlfriend, you could literally just copy and paste the girlfriends because they're the same people too. They're all the same white women. It felt like their conversations were also incredibly shallow. It felt like their dates were just like there as a formality, and then they're like, look, they're in love, hooray. And I'm like, no, I hate that. I hate that, thank you. I want nothing to do with that. And look, at the end of the day, if some books' biggest crime is being boring and repetitive, it's not really that bad. You've seen some of the other books I do on this channel. I literally go watch the Sapphic Inquisition one because that one was horrifying. It's not so bad. Like, if you want to write a boring book, you are entitled to do so. But I'm entitled not to like it and to feel like it's pulling teeth to get through. That's just me. Also, just one of the only other things I want to say about this book before we wrap it up, because I feel like I've said everything that can be said about this book basically, is that every time one of them expresses a struggle with something, like Anna was saying, I think it will be harder for me to find someone to date because I am going to adopt this kid and this kid lives in my house. They all are like gassing each other up as like, no, you're intelligent, you're beautiful, you're blah blah blah. Okay, that can all be true, but there can still be deep obstacles to dating because you chose to have children in whatever way you chose to have them. That's fine. But like, why are we trying to silence the actual problems that these characters have by just saying all this fluffy nonsense about how great of people they are, yada yada yada? I understand what you're saying, but if you think about it logically for more than a couple of seconds, you realize like, hey, what does her being hot and intelligent, whatever compliments they said, have to do with her finding someone to date and that being difficult because a lot of queer people might not want kids, or even just people in their age group might not want kids, especially a middle schooler, right? This second. It has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. And to me, it almost feels like it's kind of saying in that specific instance, but they do this a lot, right? Is they'll want you despite that kid because of all your great qualities. I'm like, well, it shouldn't be despite the kid because the kid lives there and the kid deserves someone who is engaged and active as a parent. But instead of also getting interesting commentary on that, seeing Anna search for somebody who could fulfill her in that way, right? Who wants to fulfill not only being with her but having this kid and being deeply involved with their life, and seeing how hard it is to date, she just falls in love with someone at the bar instantly and it all works out. And that's just not how it works. In conclusion, I will say that I think this book's biggest crime is being boring and being written, it's not even matter-of-factly, but that's like what I want to say. It's like very much like a toddler giving a story. This happened and then this happened and then this happened and then this. And you're like, wow, I definitely understood all those words, but thanks for saying it that way. Like, that's not an interesting way to hear an adult tell a story, so I didn't like that it was done here. I think that there are some deeply problematic views on the adoption industry and the foster care system as a whole in this book, and I think that because you wanted your romance book to kind of be sunshine and rainbows where everyone's a perfect person basically except for the kids' parents and Michelle's dad and I guess Becky's ex, who is toxic. But the main characters that we're supposed to root for overall, you wanted them to be perfect, so you had to make this the most perfect adoption story you could think of, where there's no pushback from the kid. The kid is not that behaviorally difficult, doesn't have complicated feelings about their parents, and just wants to live with Anna, and then immediately likes Anna's new girlfriend. It's boring. It could have been really narratively interesting. It could have been something that talks about the nuances, at least a little bit, of the foster care system and the adoption system within the United States. But instead, I feel like it's glorifying it because it tried to make it seem perfect. Like there really will be no strings attached. Like, yeah, her parents tried to reach out one time, but we handled it, you know? And that's just not realistic. It's not my experience from working with multiple groups of preteens and teens. It's not my experience at all. And I think that it's sad that the author just decided to go for the fairy tale book thing. And there's more than one book in this series, so my other thing is I was like, you could have made the search for Ms.Right take a lot longer for all of them and given us more depth to the characters and to the way things actually are. But you just decided you didn't want to do that. And that's your prerogative, but I don't have to enjoy it. I don't. So basically this book was boring. Sounded like stereo instructions, very repetitive all over the place. I gave this book half a star because I couldn't stand it. I really didn't enjoy it. It was like pulling teeth. A lot of times I couldn't tell who was who. I just don't think it's that well written, and so that's why I gave it half a star. Is it as offensive as the two other books I gave half a star, which is It's Not My Favorite by Rue and The Sapphic Inquisition by Ashley Holiday? No, it's not as offensive as those. No, certainly not. No, it's a much milder, less offensive kind of book. However, that doesn't make it good, you know? Let me know in the comments how you think that this book could be improved, because I have like ideas. I don't think it was all a wash from the start, but I do think that more time and care needed to be put into their different personalities and making their POV sound different as well. I know I keep bringing up the same points, but basically that's it, right? I think it could have been very interesting because boring subject matters in romance can be made to be not boring. And I see that in a lot of adult romances that make me, you know, tee-hee and kick my feet. They actually are overall doing very boring things, just like these characters, but it's not a boring book and it's not a book I dislike. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We're almost at 300 when I'm recording this. This is crazy. You guys are so great. Thank you. I'm working hard to get you guys more content. The more of you who subscribe, I can make more content once I start making money. I know no one likes to talk about the money aspect of YouTube, but it certainly is a factor for a lot of us, okay? And I have 2 jobs, so it's hard enough as it is, okay? My schedule has pretty much gone out the window. I hope you all had a good time ranting about this book with me today, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!